During the postbellum era, the clash of pro-slavery and anti-slavery institutions caused African Americans to experience turmoil as they struggled to overcome the obstacles associated with being of a different race and social status than their longtime white superiors. Much of the turmoil was due to the pro-slavery population's support of the belief that those of African descent were not intended to be included in the body of people that the framers of the Constitution referred to. Another issue was the established reputation of the African American as property. As a result, the white population remained in this framed mind, even after the abolition of slavery. After the emancipation of slaves, the only thing that separated the African Americans from their white counterparts was discrimination due to race. The institution of slavery was so widely accepted by the southern population of the United States that it soon became the framework of their society. The acceptance of slavery was due to the fact that the whites in the South interpreted the Constitution to implicitly include slavery in the rights of the white man. The Dred Scott decision was an example of how the status of a people could be determined by the interpretations of society. In the Dred Scott versus Synthard case, Dred Scott was enslaved in St. Louis, Missouri, and filed suit for his freedom in 1846. When the case reached the Supreme Court 10 years later, Chief Justice Robert B. Taney ruled that the Negro has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. This statement was founded on the belief that slaves are within the contemplation of the Constitution of the United States property. That slaves are property in the same sense that horses, sheep, and swine are property. However, this statement was a blatant contradiction of the constitutional idea that all men are created equal. Taney's rebuttal: the enslaved African race were not intended to be included, and formed no part of the people who framed and adopted this declaration, sought to justify the denial of citizenship to people of African descent. On the other hand, Frederick Douglass gave light to the fact that a plain reading of both the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence does not explicitly exclude the African race from the term the people. Taney also stated that his view of African Americans' position in society was, at that time, fixed and universal with the civilized portion of the white race. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Frederick Douglass proved this statement to be untrue by providing quotations from the Methodist Church and the Presbyterian Church in which they stated their opposition and abhorrence of slavery. The other aspect of the African Americans' struggle was their long-standing reputation as chattel, or property, given to them by their white superiors. Being abased to the equivalent of livestock made it even more difficult for the whites to see the African Americans as moral people when the abolition of slavery came about. This resulted in a gap between races that was essentially based on skin color. In conclusion, African Americans experienced an undefined sense of freedom during the era after the abolition of slavery due to the fact that whites in the South interpreted the law so that African Americans were denied equal status because they were still considered less than human. However, in order for the playing field to be equal, both parties, both pro-slavery and anti-slavery, had to have the same mind frame, in terms of the definition of a human, despite race or social status.